she spoke with the board office and the message didn't get to us. So, all right. Before Rob loses his voice, here are the various streetscape-related goals, and I would like, Mr. Mead, you kindly volunteered. If others of you who were involved in hearing these the other nights want to elaborate on these, please do. But the goal: improve the public realm, issue many sidewalks or 8 to 17, narrow conditions for pedestrian. The proposal required the street wall of new buildings within that black box. No, within the red lines. Thank you. To step back 5 feet, a maximum of 5 feet, to achieve a 20-foot wide sidewalk. Proposal number 1. Any comments, questions? Ms. Ortiz-Joy?
I can't see the cross streets, but I was wondering how would that affect a landmark historic district? Not that we have a lot of new buildings coming in, but what?
Vanderbilt, Underhill, Grand, Classen, what's that? Franklin, Nostrand.
No.
What?
Bedford, Nostrand, yeah.
George, this is only for Atlantic Avenue.
Oh.
And it's only the red line, so that's along Atlantic Avenue. We're only concerned with the south side. So it's between Bedford and Underhill, Washington and Grand, Grand and Classen, Classen and Franklin. A little nub on there, and then between Bergen and the end of Bedford and the end of things. So these are presumably buildings like we already have going up here. A step back is probably not a terrible idea for a bunch of reasons.
To your point, it's worth noting that there's a number on that stretch that are already like very new, like still under construction, big buildings. So those are locked in stone for the foreseeable future. So thinking about pedestrian space there, they will either be continued to be pinch points or something.
Thank you. And your name, sir?
Alan.
Okay.
And what's so good about this now is that in the last time that they had to negotiate, and once they did that step back, they gave them additional height. But now it's mandatory that it's step back with no negotiation of giving any additional height, which should have been done from previously. But I'm glad that they did at this point.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. All of this is setting a new limit for as-of-right building. Right. So not going to be piecemeal negotiable.
I also do want to add, because I asked if they specified that the reason that it's specifically 5 feet is because if it were any more than 5 feet, it would be considered a taking, and that's why, as Mr. Thurton said, if it were a taking, they would have to allow for more buildable floor area. But within 5 feet, they don't have to allow more floor area.
Okay. Mr. Crouch.
Just to add a little extra detail to this, they're proposing that the facade of the buildings, they can lean out, I think it's up to 3 feet, or they're required to lean out or lean in 3 feet.
It's in. They're required to articulate their facades horizontally, not vertically. So for a building that has a wide frontage, they have to kind of set back and forth. Visually, I think that was also. There are renderings in there.
Yeah, that's the next one.
Yes, that's an additional step.
So there's like 6 or 7 of these. So we'll walk through each of them and we'll take some comments, then we'll come back to it. Second proposal, to again improve the public realm. Due to these long block frontages, you don't want flat, continuous, uniform, boxy facades. Require building facade articulation for developments with more than 100 feet of frontage, in addition to base height setbacks. So here in the picture, we see this articulation of the facade, recesses or projections, flexibility in street wall locations. I guess it doesn't have to go down to the streetscape because the left-hand one, is up a story. Okay. An example over here of what it might look like. Not a very good example, in my opinion. Okay, so this number 2 is the articulation. Number 3, Atlantic Avenue is located in a walk-to-park gap. We've all seen the great radius map that's been out here, or how long does it take you to walk to a park from point A? And this isn't one of those 10-minute gap zones. So the proposal, again, parks are not necessarily what we're talking about here. Create a new CPC authorization for a 20% floor area bonus for new developments on lots greater than $25,000. To provide newly publicly accessible open space. And we all know how wonderfully well publicly accessible open space works. As opposed to a park. New open space proposals would involve a separate application process with a series of findings and environmental review. Okay, so POPS. Cheat sheet here. Active ground floor uses, so here's the summary, right? So again, facade requirements, we're not talking about active ground floor uses, but the street wall setback, public accessible open space. And then we're gonna go ahead a little bit from Atlantic Avenue itself to the proposals. Oops. Starting on 65, here, page 65. Special district, public realm and streetscape. Goal, provide flexibility for lots close, adjacent to, or close to the elevated rails, Franklin Avenue, or the Long Island Railway. The issues, physical constraints of lots adjacent to the Franklin Avenue shuttle, noise and vibrations. The proposal, allow lots adjacent to the Franklin Avenue shuttle to waive rear yard equivalence to allow more flexibility. And permit development within 100 feet of the shuttle, the LIR, to increase heights by 1 to 2 stories. Again, that's got a transportation element. It's something we need to consider. Armory. Skipping past the armory to here, this one, page 70. Off-street parking. Goal, reduce conflicts between parking and housing to improve the streetscape and minimize curb cuts and loading. Issue, off-street parking is required for 50% of non-income restricted housing units, which can result in underutilized parking areas and compete for spaces with housing other uses. Proposal, waive residential off-street parking in alignment with COI housing opportunity. That's number 5. Now we're going to go past all the fun stuff you people at land use have to deal with. Mandatory inclusionary zoning and all sorts of separate lots. We're going to go to page 89. And now we get to some of the other questions, right? So street widths, bicycle lanes, and nearby roads, right? So page 90. Here to Mr. Ross's point that he unfortunately has left. Throughout the proposal are these SIPs, Safety Improvement Projects. That's DOT parlance for a quasi-capital program. That's something that is done with paint or with planters or with bollards, but not with raised concrete. But it is a safety improvement project, and they can do these sort of as and when. So those would be here at these proposals. There are some that have already happened, 2024, and then the brighter yellow ones are 2025. And that would be, looks like the corner of Classen and the corner of Franklin for our side of things. We don't care about St. Andrew's Playground, lovely as it is, it's not in our district. Lowry Triangle and Underhill Triangle. Design is underway, more details to be announced, but the idea is to take the street that has been given over to permanent open streets on the block of Underhill between Pacific and Atlantic and essentially merge it into Lowry Triangle and park there.
Would we call it Lowry Trapezoid?
I think that's as good an idea as any. I think we should include that. Last one on the list, the second to last one on the list, stormwater and sewer capacity, right? We are the Environment Committee as well. These dark blue lines are water mains that some of us have lived with these projects for several years now. Replacements allegedly are going to be completed. There are 148 green infrastructure assets to be constructed, rain gardens, stormwater detention, et cetera, et cetera. And then opportunities to align with sustainability, right? And that sort of takes us through the proposals that are relevant to our work. All right, I'm gonna roll back up to the top. Nowhere on that list did I see mention of a bike boulevard, right? So to the larger conversation that we're having here tonight, I don't think it's a proposal. And I would like whatever we come out of here tonight to say, if it ain't on this spreadsheet, we're preemptively not supporting it. That's one proposal.
We could also, just as an idea, so if there are some points of agreement, say, maybe I'm incorrect, but I know that there were some percentage of HBC that were not considering people, that we kindly ask for those points of agreement to be shared prior to a land use committee meeting next week, because the land use committee meeting next week is going to implicitly contain all of these elements. So,
where did you say you saw those?
well, I know that at the last public PHMC meeting, you have to go to public ones, but that was online. The meeting was at the meeting there was a presentation by Kaya Kuhl, who was a steering committee member of the Cabinet Mixed-Use Plan, and an urban planner, and I think very capably has been in the community. And she presented to the attendees online a set of, they were points of agreement between a narrower set. It wasn't the steering committee of the AAMUP, it was a smaller set. Meaning it was really more of an individual presentation, but it was given the space for a presentation. So that lends to the idea that there are some more basic committee type or steering committee type agreements, and it makes sense that we actually have a sense of what they are. And I'm sorry I recognize that this is divisive, and I mean, it's the discussion is divisive, not the proposal. It's the discussion over livable streets. Things can be very divisive, and so really, what hopefully can come out of this is some very clear steps that empower the public more, so that we don't have something black, because in my view, the Vanderbilt thing did blow up and make a lot of people unhappy unnecessarily. I think if things might have looked a little different on Vanderbilt, but in terms of the plan that was implemented, if there were more people involved. But I do think that if there had been a better process, the people wouldn't be so upset.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think that it's easy to, for some of us to see how that kind of a process happens, because you have it just takes a lot of energy and involves a lot of outreach. So,
That all well and good, but again, I'm focused on tonight.
right, so as a
Advancing
proposal,
the agenda tonight.
right,
So what I would like to do, and if anybody has anything they want to talk substantively about any of those 8 points that we went through, let's go through them again. Are there any? I see the hand in the back. I see the couple hands in the back. But let's give me a few minutes. It's already 8:26. I want us out of here as close to 9 as possible. I'll stipulate that we can add something like that on, but let's focus on the substance of what's before us first, and then can come back to that, okay?
yeah, very.
How do we want to do this? There are 8 of these by my count. 5-foot setbacks, articulation, publicly accessible open space, the train track relevant ones, Franklin Avenue Shuttle and LARR, the off-street parking lot, the street safety improvement project, the SIPs, Lowry Triangle, and stormwater and environmental, stormwater and sewer. Maybe there was a 9th.
And
There's
then
also-
Lowry.
He said it.
I said Lowry, yeah.
He said it.
So there are 9. I don't think we want to just say thumbs up. I may be kidding myself. But I think we want to come up with some, I don't think we also want to vote on each of them individually, right? Mr. Neal?
There's actually something
That
that,
is true.
that I see that's missing from their proposals that would have to happen through the land use change, the actual zoning change. And that is provisions, whether it's an incentive or a requirement for off-street trash staging. Especially in larger buildings, it's, you know, there can always be like a good amount of trash generated, and you know, even with containerization, probably most of that won't be able to go out into the container immediately. And I think trash management is something that seems to be missing.
That's fair, that's fair. All right, I want to keep the comments to the substance for a bit. That's very substantive. Mr. Atkins?
The water.
Yep.
Could you review that, please? The breadth of the sewage pipes, whether or not they're bifurcated? And just to note, you said that you would only entertain things that were in your 8 or 9 subjects, and then you immediately flipped from there.
I did what?
You entertained something that wasn't on the list.
Mr. Meehan's point?
Yes, sir.
I didn't know what Mr. Meehan was going to say before he said it.
It could have been dated at the same time.
This is page 94. What was your, do you have a question about it, or do you just want to see it again?
I just wanted to hear it discussed in full. In other words, the pipes are the purple lines that are going there?
No, that's the, that is the,
Can you describe it for me then?
Sure.
Briefly.
The dotted purple line is the outline of the AAMUP area. And you see there's 3 separate blocks. The blue lines are the sewer and water main replacements. And then over in Bed-Stuy and then down here at PS9, there are stormwater infrastructure projects that are going in. Green roof, I believe, on PS9.
Bioswales?
Well, and then 140 curbside rain gardens throughout the area within the purple dotted lines.
So there are no new sewage pipes or recently installed sewage pipes?
Replacement of combined sewer mains on Dean Street. All of those blue lines are the replacements or projects that are ongoing or have recently been completed.
Solid blue lines.
The solid blue lines, yeah, as opposed to the dotted purple lines. Thank you.
I think I can just, if I'm remembering correctly, the sewer line, just if anyone has a question about it, that was replaced maybe about a decade ago. So, in anticipation of the development. So, that went all the way. They may not be totally completed closer to us on the between Pacific and Carlton, I'm not sure, but definitely moving all the way out. It went up quite far out. I don't know the exact geographic parameter.
I think they mentioned Clinton.
And I would say that to be completed November 2025 for the water main and sewer lines on Main Street would be really nice.
All right, is it on point?
Yes. So DCP said in the meeting that they did not know what future stormwater or sewers they would have to build yet, because that's going to be part of the environmental impact statement that they're going to release as part of the ULURP. I think they said when it was going to go to City Planning Commission.
Right.
So this is just ongoing stuff. There's nothing new on this slide.
Right. Future projects will depend on the EIS. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm a man that loves transparency. The proposals that's being made, can that change without notification to the Community Board 8, to our community?
I would like to think not, but as I think the general tenor of this conversation has demonstrated, we're a little uncertain on the reliability. And I think that's fair to incorporate in what we have to say. But this is a presentation that has been written and published by the Department of City Planning.
So, do we vote on that, proposal or
Well,
not?
that's kind of where I'm leading. Again, tonight, I didn't want to come in here with any preconceived notions.
Because
I
if we-
wasn't sure I'd have a quorum. But we have a quorum, so I think we should discuss and vote on these 9 points in some way, shape, or form. And maybe we do want to go through them one by one.
And again, this, if I may, in voting on them, I would like to say that they would have to notify the community if there's any changes to the proposal.
Well, we vote on the proposal that was presented to us, right? And all we are is advisory. We say, you showed us this, we thought X, Y, and Z about it, and we don't always say thumbs up, thumbs down. Sometimes our vote is, we would like this to include another element. Mr. Meehan's
So if they
you can
change-
articulate the facades,
if they change-
as an articulation include a garbage room.
If they change the plan, if they change the proposal without us knowing it or not really caring about us, then we're voting for something that, hey, it's here.
Yeah.
I think it's worth hearing.
No,
the chair's point.
I'm willing
It's
to.
just advisory.
Yeah, I'm just thinking ahead of the, you know,
And
ahead
then
of the
if you vote for the wrong presidential candidate, your taxes go up, you know, there you go.
I wouldn't be so cynical.
Too soon, sorry.
So I would like to, you're asking for some feedback. I would like to make a motion to propose, I don't know, help me with the language.
Go ahead.
But I agree with your facial expression on the public accessible but privately owned spaces. What are they called? The PAPs?
It used to be POPs, but now they've changed it.
So,
Publicly accessible open space, PAOS.
right, so public space is great, and I would like to say we would want that to be a Parks Department operated publicly available space. As a recommendation.
Is it on private property?
Yeah.
With additional city funding to maintain those.
Yes.
The department will say
Spaces.
thanks, but no thanks. Yeah. I think that's the point of the private thing, is that it's optional, so the city.
I'm-
Just like some notes here.
I'm actually looking for the future because my children's gonna look at this and I have to be responsible. And if it's gonna hurt any of our community members, you know, we are responsible because we are putting it through. And
It's not a consideration any of us who come here.
yeah. So I just don't want to lay down and say, okay, whatever.
Don't, I know these people. These people are not about to lay down.
Not you per se, or all three of you, or anyone in this room, but it's just to be cognizant of our community.
I don't have a recommendation, I just have a statement. You know, we talk about public spaces, but every space
It's a public space.
that's in our community is being taken up. So, for me, it's contradictory to talk about we want public spaces, we want open spaces, but all the spaces are being inhabited. And this does not mean that I am not in support of housing, because I am in support of housing. I'm not in support of the fact that housing is being built that we can't afford to live in, but that's a separate issue. But it's just ironical to me that we talk about open space and then building is going up everywhere, taking up open space.
So where do we stand? We 10 toes down that this is what we're gonna do or not do. We have
We don't have a
responsibility.
choice. I mean, to me, many of our voices are not heard in this city.
That's what I'm saying.
Many of our
Thank you.
voices are not heard.
And this has to be with transparency, you know, being transparent, basically. And if you can't be transparent, if I can't trust you, then why do I have to deal with you?
All right, let's move this
Period.
forward. Let's move this forward. So, here's what I'd like. Item number 1, I'm sorry, was there a hand? Ms. Balsamo?
I just wanted to give you some extra information because I was at the meeting. Something that also came up that might be of interest to you is some people were worried about the increased traffic on Atlantic Avenue because we've already had a lot of increased traffic over the last few years. That's been an issue in the community, and they said they were doing traffic studies So we've been asking for traffic studies for a while. Maybe you guys can get in on that and see what those are about. And then there were quite a few people who said at the meeting about the open spaces, I don't want to be told to go to the park. I want daylight in my house. I don't want to lose the sky. Many people brought up the fact that we're losing the sky, we're losing the natural light. So I'm just giving, I don't have an opinion on either of those. I'm just giving it to you as information.
Thank you. All right, I'm just gonna move through these one by one. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Yeah, I'm
Take
just
your
waiting.
jacket up so I see the orange hand.
Yeah, I'm waiting, in regards to the, cars, right?
We'll get there, yeah.
That's on there.
Yeah.
I don't, because you mentioned whether, you suggested whether we'll vote on them together or vote on,
I'm kind of listening to the room, and I'm hearing that we want to take these item by item. I
Right,
think we've got a lot of
you
divergent
don't wanna,
feelings item by
you don't
item.
wanna lose any bundle
So I
of
hand over here.
cars.
Yeah, so I live against one of those red lines, so I'm crossing Atlantic every day, and to that, or at one point of, street changes to like increase pedestrian safety, I wanna encourage, taking it further and maybe like as new buildings are built, like suggest that they handle like actual infrastructure changes to the street improvement beyond just paint, because I know that, you know, cars will drive right over paint, and these like wide crossings, infrastructure is important.
Thank you. Mr. Mead.
Yeah, I'd like to augment that with some specifics. You know, we have for instance, zoning for accessibility where developers can pay for subway enhancements. I'd like to propose that like developers can or that we perhaps do value capture on like raised crosswalks, for instance.
More of a conceptual thing than that's good too. Okay, this one. Widening the sidewalks on the south side of Atlantic Avenue where the block faces are long. Can I get a show of hands who would support this by itself? Straw poll. Straw poll, right. Does anybody have a problem with this? Does anybody not support this by itself?
Let me,
Was that a question?
Question.
Yeah.
Why is it something on the south side of the street?
Because we only care about the south side of the street. We're community board A.
Our opinion doesn't
No,
matter.
I do not acknowledge the existence of anything north of Atlantic, west of Flatbush, south of Eastern Parkway, or east of
Also,
Route.
the
It doesn't exist.
rezoning doesn't include the north side of the street except for where you see the lines, to my knowledge. Right, exactly.
Well, there is, where it's the double red, there is some there, that's on the north side.
Yes, but not
That's
on
not
the-
us, yeah.
But the whole
Right.
the whole Eagles line, this is, your systemic planning.
I know, but this is our mandate.
We've got the CCD here.
We have to speak about our, community board, if you watch community board 3, get really mad if we say that, Herkimer Street should be, change the flow on. Peter, you.
right, so widening the sidewalks by pulling the buildings back by.
If somebody's gonna build a new building on the south side of Atlantic Avenue, they have to leave from the curb to the front of their building 20 feet.
All right.
Alright, so,
They're not taking any street, they're
not taking any street, sidewalk, curb, south, right? Setback, okay. So that one seemed non-controversial. Articulation. Right, this kind of variable setback, and we've all seen the long blocks in Manhattan or wherever, where it's just long and boring and glass and nothing, and there's a little bit of liveliness to this, which is the idea behind it. It also helps with airflow, it helps with a lot of other things. Show of hands, who would support this by itself?
Could it be more specific?
Yeah.
All right,
Because I've seen buildings where like there's like a pointed windows in and out, like I just don't know what that means, you know, like how much is being set back, it's unclear.
okay.
And I also have a question about, this is extra, I don't know if there are any architects in the room, like, if this is gonna cost the developer more money and then they're not gonna build affordable housing because they have to comply with articulation, I think I would rather the really affordable housing versus articulation.
Who would not be in favor of this and why, Mr. Mead?
So this articulation makes heating somewhat less efficient. So then you're using more either electricity or oil to heat or cool the building because there's more surface area for heat to dissipate, as well as this is kind of I don't know. It feels to me outdated to define.
That's fine, that's good. All right, moving on. Our favorite one now, publicly accessible open spaces. We've already heard one. Scott said that he would like it, but if it's administered by the Parks Department, who, as is written, this would not be administered by the Parks Department. Who would support this as written?
Can I ask a question first about, does anyone know the regulations for these sites?
I think they're very one-off specific. I think it's an agreement between the property owner and the city.
The reason why I asked that is because in one particular case that I'm familiar with, there was a fence across it that could be openable, but the public wouldn't choose to use it. So I think like there should be designed for access, public access.
You ever see Andy?
For ready public access.
Yeah, to kind of go on top of that, I think the real value in these comes in the form of like connecting spaces. So thinking about like walking along Civic, between what's it, Vanderbilt and whatever's west of there, how it's like a nice pedestrian space to walk through. I think that's the real value of something like this.
I was also going to comment similarly. I feel like these are much more useful if they're either full pass through or on a corner, because if they're just kind of mid block and you're just sandwiched on three sides between buildings, it's not as pleasant as if you've got.
These are good points, right?
Something
so it's
like
6.5 Avenue in the middle of Manhattan,
yeah,
right?
or something like very close to our district. It's called Putnam Triangle. It's that kind of triangle where now this I understand is actually publicly owned space, but it's that corner of like Putnam and Fulton, the triangle there.
No, but the rather than a cul-de-sac or a pocket where you don't know if you're going into whether you can safely get out of it again, right? These through space ideas are good ones.
With
Okay.
eyes on the street.
I have seen some really beautiful pocket parks like in town, where they have a waterfall, or they have some other. So those
Close at 9 o'clock at night and open again.
But I think the question for me really, if there's one issue, is it's desire of public access and the public having access to it. But if there's one point.
Yes,
I think that's good.
aligned with where I'm going.
Any other comments on this before we roll on, Ms. Nottingham?
Yeah, but, yes, but I wonder if, okay, the idea of the public space is great, but do you realize also that that comes with a 20% floor area additional with that? In other words, you can make your building so much larger. Is that a good cost-benefit analysis? I mean, they already wanted proposing 18-story buildings. If you can add 25% more on top of that and create gianter shadows, is that? I'm just asking.
Yeah, these are the trade-offs.
Right, I agree with you. I agree with it totally. I mean, this is the same situation when they negotiated with that 5-foot step back. They were doing a 5-foot step back and was giving them additional space up. Now they're giving them the park space and additional floorage. I mean, it should be just give them the park space and that's it. I mean, just as they did with they found out that you should not need to negotiate for safety, and if they want to do for open space, they shouldn't have to need to negotiate for that also. But that doesn't fall in our realm, but that goes under housing. But that should have been something that should have been non-negotiable on that part.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, do we want to then, knowing that housing part, which is not in our jurisdiction, but you can sort of vaguely consider it because it's part of the open space that
We're throwing it on the table for now.
Yeah.
What if we
Go back
tied it
through
with
and winnow this out, yeah.
that proposal where it said like every 100 feet you have to do a setback? Like, could we say like every blankety blank feet there needs to be a publicly accessible open space? Just require it?
Right, at the end of the day, aren't they getting government, funding and all this stuff?
No, Well, in a way, this is all, that's what they're playing with, our perceived tax dollars at work. Okay, Franklin Avenue Shuttle, LIRR. This is only the shuttle, of course, but same idea, right? If you're a lot that's adjacent to the elevated rail line, do we want to allow you to waive the rear yard equivalent, right? Because you can only build, you have to leave space from the lot line to the back of your building. But if that, on the other side of that fence is just empty space leading to the rail line, will they let you build up to it? And also permit developments within 100 feet to go up a story or two, because in theory you're not shading anybody, you're just shading a train line, right? Who would support this as written?
No.
Who has questions or issues here? One at a time. Mr. Third.
Well, I mean, it's a quality of life issue. No matter how good of windows you put in there, it's never going to be quiet, or you'll always feel a rumble. So why would you want to create a problem by making your building, or letting your building be closer to the source of the vibration and noise? I mean, yeah, it sounds great, you're only shading train tracks, but that doesn't mean that the people who get to live there are going to enjoy living there. I don't think it's a good permission.
Okay. Mr. Meehan?
So, I must have missed this somehow. Is the idea here that to allow, because they might not want to set the building up all the way to the lot edge where the shuttle is, that they would let them set back from the shuttle and then go further into the backyard? Anyone who saw this slide?
I read this to say that, you know, this is a build, say it's a building that's fronting onto, I don't even know where this really
Siding onto it.
Well,
yeah, because it's
frontage on the side
backyard.
streets.
Yeah, because you need the rear yard, your open space ratio, right? You're waiving the rear yard calculations in your open space ratio is how I would read that. So you could zero it out and not lose any bulk. You could build right up to the lot line instead of having to leave a gap because there's no building behind you. It's just train line. That's how I read that first bullet point.
I don't think any of these, or I don't think many of these lots actually back, like rear yard back up the shuttle.
This
like,
probably matters for Atlantic Avenue and LIR
Okay.
than we do. But it seems weird.
Yeah.
Scott? Mr. Weinstein?
I was gonna make the case for this. I see the shuttle line on Franklin. The buildings go up. Where they don't, it's dead space. It's not particularly pleasant space, right? It collects trash. It's shadowy. I don't think the vibration on these trains is all that severe. Having lived at an apartment near the descent of the D and the Q coming off the Manhattan Bridge, that was loud. But you know, after 2 months, it was automatopoeia and sort of faded into the background.
Atmosphere. All right.
This seems really quite neutral to me and beneficial rather.
Yeah, it's additional bulk. It's additional floor area that people can build on.
Thinking about this through the EST lens, I guess my one question that I suspect is not a problem, but like I want to make sure we're not getting in the way of the right of way in any way that could prevent future like transit development. So, for example, thinking about the Franklin Avenue shuttle, if they ever wanted to make it 2-track again, make sure we're not building something in such a way that it prevents that.
It's fair. It's fair. It's fair. Audrey?
There is a building right now that was touch and go for a while because of rent increase. And the people that live in that building are now suffering because they have that railroad going, that subway going right past them. There is no getting away from it. But they don't want to give up their apartments because the rents are decent, right? But I wouldn't. They have to put something up there to
Right,
some
so
kind
this-
of barrier.
This is only new construction, right? This is if somebody wants to build new.
Well, that's what makes it funny. I have seen signs where the developers are asking for people to buy those lots. Why? Why?
Good question.
What
All right,
money?
we'll move on to the next
What money you
one,
gonna get for that?
which is off-street parking. Peter, you wanna take this one?
Yes, you know,
This is page 70 for those of you following along at home.
there's an attack and an encroachment on cars. It's being subtly done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to say subtly done, because it's seldom ever the main topic of discussion, right? Because when you build for the bikes and you build for open spaces, all these things, you take away parking space. And the city is our government, both on all levels, is extremely hypocritical in that they're asking people to buy electric cars and all of these energy-saving vehicles, but yet they're choosing not to provide you a space to park your cars, right? So that's the big hypocrisy, right? Because the same person who wants to do away with cars and have people go ahead and use mass transit, he'll go to another meeting and he'll speak towards people buying, electric cars and gaining the subsidies that the government gives for that. And so, I'm always a proponent that these developers, if you're gonna build a house, that you have to include some kind of parking.
I want to take that away. If you listen to the city of Yes, they don't want to give any more
Absolutely.
parking to the buildings.
That's
So
it.
which way are you going? Forward, backward, sideways, imploding? What?
Alex, Mr. Ron?
Is this proposal moot?
Can you speak up?
I'm wondering if this is moot now, since.
Right, City of Yes has passed out of committee without the off-street parking waiver. So maybe this is, but this could still be part of AAMUP, I don't know.
Well, sorry, the City of Yes passed with, there's a tiered system of parking. There's three tiers. I think lots of areas in Manhattan, they got rid of the parking minimums. You're still allowed to build parking if you so choose. You just are no longer required to if you're in zone 1. And if you're in zone 3, which I believe our neighborhood is.
Our neighborhood is proposed to be in zone 1.
Yeah.
Oh, zone 1. Wait,
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So
So Manhattan already has no parking minimum. It is proposed that the northern and western parts of Brooklyn, as far south as Sunset Park and as far east as approximately Broadway Junction, but not anywhere southeast of Prospect Park, would be in zone 1 that no longer has parking minima. Same with Queens CD 1 and 2.
So we're still in, this isn't moot.
This proposal of AAMUP is made moot because our parking minima would already be eliminated by City of Yes by the time AAMUP comes to a vote.
Right, so,
Assuming that it passes in the next few weeks.
yeah, but we can always add a suggestion, right? So we can make that suggestion, even though we're made move.
I'm gonna skip over this one. For now.
Yeah,
This
but
is an iterative
gotta
process. Let no one say that we don't cover all our bases here.
You said you're gonna skip over it?
For now. Because it's sort of mooted, we're gonna come back to the issue later.
Doesn't matter.
But I
think we can unmute it, we can like make it a requirement.
I haven't developed it yet.
No, so what is the raise hand?
I want us to get a sense of the room. But yeah, I haven't done that on this. Who would support the off-street parking one as written? Right? Who would be opposed to it as written? Getting the sense of the room. Okay. Thank you. I forgot to do that. Skipping ahead to the SIPs, which is the next one. So these fellas. Daylight, we've already called for.
What page?
We are on page 90. Who would support this kind of as written, as presented? Again, this committee has been on record to support this.
Can I just make a thing about the SIPs? I just got an email this week from one of my neighbors. She got an email from the Office of Emergency Management, asking for volunteers to go put on gloves and clean out the gutters, because street sweepers can't come and clean out the gutters anymore because there's boulders, planters, bolted bike racks, and bollards in front of storm drains.
That's what the people wanted.
I called the DEP to come clear out the storm drain on my corner, and when the truck came, they actually couldn't clean it. They couldn't reach the storm drain to clean it, so they went and cleaned across the street.
That's what the people
And that's
wanted.
my point about
Good point, good
planning.
point.
But didn't you get flooding?
including
But didn't you get
working
flooding?
to- Yeah.
And I got flooded, and we get flooded all the time.
I will make note that,
Oh, yes.
entrepreneurs have a,
Oh, yes.
street cleaning device that is designed for bike lanes. And so I would propose that we would, amend this, motion to say that the, Department of Sanitation and DEP purchase some of this equipment to access, well, look, if they can't get to it, they should get to it.
Excuse me,
Let's-
but you know, this is the city. And
Our
what-
budget,
they-
our budget
they-
is enormous. Our budget is enormous. And
Budget is enormous.
safety, we're all concerned with safety of bike riders, safety of pedestrians. These are
Safety of cars.
Well, you're in a fuel cell in a car.
No,
Right, let's not go there.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
Stay on the
we're
product.
gonna
About
say safety for everyone. Safety for everyone.
Safety is safety, everybody.
For
Yes,
everybody.
we all have the right to safety. And so, given that there is equipment to clean these things, and our budget is significant, I would motion we, recommend purchase of such equipment.
With concerns about the cleanliness.
For the sanitation department? So
Or
that
the
they can come
DEP,
and-
what?
Or the
I'm not an
DEP.
expert in who precisely is cleaning the street and the gutter intersection. Is that the DEP, is that sanitation?
It's
Well,
both.
it's usually
Let
the
me
street
know.
sweeper
It's
that
both.
comes.
It's both of them.
Moving on. Any other comments on SIPs?
Yes.
Yes.
I do. I understand the good concept of people being able to be seen better, but whatever happened to the idea of like a longer light to make people part of it is to make it less distance for people to get from one side of the street to the other, and that is possibly a time problem. If you hit sidewalk to sidewalk, it's still 80 feet. So why not just make the lights longer and solve the problem that way instead?
I think too, they do a lot of that as part and parcel of this.
Well-
They'll recalibrate the light timing.
Yeah, but it seems like there's more paint than timer adjustment too sometimes.
Desmond and Peter.
So before you tell me that these are irrelevant, this first thing, the city just made it legal to jaywalk. That's the first thing. The second thing is 5 years or 6 years ago, I brought up to the board the fact that there were one-man street cleaners and that they should have been brought into BK8 on an experimental basis. And before I left the board, I noticed that Ms. Neal proposed it as though it was a brand new idea. You're asking for the same thing, so that's half of the problem
That's
here.
been in our budget request ever since you started it, annually.
And what happened?
It hasn't gotten approved yet.
Why?
Good question. I don't do the budget.
Why?
And how-
Okay, so the second
That's a
half
great question.
was when you had the flood 2 years ago that basically flooded all of central Brooklyn. And they found out that all the catch basins were not being cleaned regularly, and DEP doesn't have the manpower. Also, you have the electrical, and they like, nobody wants to discuss this, but this is all part of our problems. Every electrical substation floods, and then the people's wires short out, and then they say that there's not enough maintenance. But this is a state problem with the utilities. And this is all part of environment, sanitation, and transportation. Because when one of those places, they used to have manhole covers exploding, all these things tied together. And everybody is short-sighted, and when you speak to the people who do these things, who have to go and clean up, they'll tell you, yeah, this should be taken care of on a cyclical basis and much more often. This is the place you're supposed to discuss it, but then I get told that I have too broad a focus. So you
Regular
figure out,
cleaning is a great point.
you figure out how you want to handle it.
It is 9:02. I want us out of this room by 9:30. I think the facility wants us out of this room by 9:30. So I appreciate everyone's patience.
When the people are in the streets, I stop and talk.
About what's a bike boulevard? I really don't think it's a good use of our time tonight, because it's not before us. Peter?
To the slide, night cross Atlantic lots, not every day, but many days in a week. And I think it's really important to shorten the lanes of the crossing for pedestrians. If you're gonna, it doesn't matter the lanes of the light, I agree with lengthening lights for pedestrians, but ultimately, I'm a pretty agile guy, and I worry getting across the street. So shortening the distance of the walk is important. Our committee has already, to my understanding, accepted daylighting, and it's hard to imagine when you have Atlantic Avenue being any less important. It's certainly more important to have clarity for pedestrians, so pedestrians to be seen by cars. And so I think you need to, I entirely agree with the idea of putting out and shortening the distance of the walk and putting a central island in the middle for the pedestrians to feel safe. I think those are both excellent ideas, and I strongly support them.
Thank you. We've got three more. Lowry Triangle, Stormwater Project, and Environmental. However, I have a thought, process-wise I want to discuss. We're not going to get all through this tonight. That's becoming abundantly clear. We'll continue through those other three. We're taking notes. Linda, I'd love your footage. By a week from we'll collate this as quickly as possible, circulate it in a written form to the membership, and a week from today, in advance of the full board meeting on the 12th of December, we will do a virtual poll on try to form our recommendations. Mr. Meehan?
Do we want to do that before the land use vote?
When is the land use vote?
December 5th.
Do you think we should do it before or after?
I mean, I think it can provide useful color to the community.
All right, yeah. So, I mean, I think what we're doing here is we're compiling color. I don't think, the only one that we've all been non-controversial on is the 5-foot setback. So I think what we're doing here is exactly that. We can approve the color commentary and pass it along. And then the vote will happen at the full board meeting to accept our commentary as part of whatever comment we make about it.
I think that kind of throws everything into the storm drains.
I feel that way. I don't love it, but somebody propose an alternative.
Well, can we not have I mean, I don't know if we can do this, but if there's some way to have an online meeting in advance of the.
We can do a Zoom.
I don't know how. I don't know what
just finish this up.
I think that's what needs to be done, a Zoom.
Well, we can take a non-binding, we have to have an open meeting, that cannot be, binding. We can't pretend we're doing business online. We're not permitted to do that by the open meetings line of one. So as long as we clear that tonight, pre-authorize that tonight, there's an understanding on the members of this committee. So,
I make a motion that we have a Zoom meeting.
who's that, Tanya? Thank you. So, let's be very clear. A Zoom meeting at which we will review the collated material that we produced tonight. We will discuss it, and we will take a non-binding straw poll vote at that meeting about the language that we wish to put forth to the full board, which includes not only our comments on these, but some of the other issues that we've raised tonight about process.
I thought actually that it would be better if we actually make a motion which includes a request for any elements of the plan, the community's plan from the steering committee of AAMUP, that can be shared with us in advance of this meeting, so that we can actually discuss those.
Let's make a motion on that specifically. There, Peter was making a motion. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
What's the motion?
The motion is to request additional, information from,
It's multiple elements. So one is that we send a letter requesting the details of these streetscape elements, street and sidewalk, or however we do this, the public streetscape elements of the AAMUP plan, be shared with us by the date that we define for this meeting. And the second element of the motion is that we schedule a Zoom meeting on whatever date we choose, to provide, to coalesce these different points, discuss them, and.
that's Ms. Nottingham's motion. Yours is more about what material to get ahead of the time. So you wanna do points of agreement, you wanna get.
If it's, I don't wanna necessarily put that term on, I thought that the term might be bandied about, but I think we should just ask for the details of the plan.
Okay, and requesting details of AAMUP streetscape improvements from DCP, from the steering
From the
committee.
steering committee and I think really Councilmember Hudson's office would probably be the right place to direct it, no? Shay Osei and Councilmember Hudson.
Peter, do you also want an ongoing interaction of the development of the plan?
Why don't we, I'm sure it sounds to you like I do, but I don't know if we wanna include that in the motion at this stage. Don't we probably wanna get one step into this?
Because we don't want things to be done and then, they'll say, okay, they're gonna go with your request specifically and give it to you give it to us when everything is already pretty much set. But it's good for us to have an input of what's going on.
We want to
because we are the community.
Yeah,
We
however
want
you
it next
wanna
week.
phrase that, yeah.
All right, so Peter's motion to request further information, is there a second?
Yeah.
Ms. Benson, thank you. It's a procedural motion. We don't need to take a roll call on procedural motions. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Ms. Nottingham's motion to have a Zoom meeting. Ms. Nottingham, when would you like to have a Zoom meeting?
So when is the other?
You better look at the calendar.
Actually, everybody's available Friday. There should be stuff enough to stay home. This Friday?
This Friday?
Some people
We have to have it
away.
But how do we send out the information to them?
I'll let the board office figure that one out.
It has to be.
Was there a question over here? Comment?
Yeah, before we agree, this, can we just really nail down exactly what will be discussed at this meeting?
I think that's fair. I think we've got the 9 elements of this presentation that we're going to have the product that we've produced tonight in written form. We're going to respond to it, amend it, and come up with feedback. Does that sound sensible?
It's the elements from the DCP presentation.
And anything
it's
else
the
we may have gotten
community
in the interim.
plan for AAMUP. So it's 2 different elements, different forms.
I'm sorry, say that again, Peter.
Well, there are 2 different plans, right, that are gonna meet. So the one is the DCP proposal, which is this.
Yes.
And the other one is whatever the community plan is.
Right, whatever we
In
get
its-
from
in its-
Hudson and
in its
OSEC.
details.
But at
So
least
we'll
this
discuss
step.
Can I make us all 9 proposals again, or just the one they
No, we'll do all 9, because we need to go over what we've produced to make sure it's reflective. Lisa?
I want to make a suggestion to facilitate the discussion. Would it be possible to create like a Zoom document with these 9 proposals and we can comment in the document so that when we're meeting up via Zoom, everything is in there and,
I would love that. Can I get volunteers to assist with that?
I can help create the Zoom document.
December 2nd, how is that? Monday, December 2nd, how is that for everybody?
That should be good, because I have nothing planned.
That's
For Tuesday?
how about December 4th, Wednesday, December 4th?
Fourth is seniors.
Senior meeting.
Tuesday the 3rd?
What about Tuesday?
Don't we have that day?
Senior meeting was on Wednesday.
A week from tonight?
Seniors Wednesday.
No.
Senior meeting.
Senior meeting?
Yeah.
So the Both is in the 5th is what?
What's Tuesday?
2 in the morning.
Tuesday the 3rd?
What time, Yvonne? What time did it?
I'm hearing Tuesday the 3rd.
And what time?
Is Tuesday the 3rd good for everyone?
No.
Somebody said no.
I'm traveling that late hour also. I mean, but you know.
We'll also circulate this in advance so that people who cannot attend can comment
On the doc.
by the document ahead of time. So I say Tuesday the 3rd, Ms. Nottingham's motion, Tuesday the 3rd, to reconvene to do this by straw poll. I appreciate it. So second to Ms. Nottingham's motion.
And what time is the reference?
Reference to the guest, whoever signed the guest
Robert,
list.
what time
Can
did
you
you
please
say?
put your email on here so that we can send out notification of the meeting for the Zoom? Please put your email. If you put your telephone number, put your email, please.
All right, all in favor of, procedural motion to adjourn until then? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Ms. Brianna?
She was. Did she sign?
No.
All right, she was here. We need to solve that question. All right. We're not calling the meeting yet because we have 2 more things to do. We have our a proposal before us on the 3rd. Thank you. That was a lot to get through. I think we have a lot of things that are out there on the table. All right, UNPCH. This is the directive that has come to this committee from the executive committee, which met in late October to discuss, and I believe a revised version of the resolution is circulated. We are not, let's be clear, we are not taking the resolution up. We are here to discuss key points. Each of these committees that are listed here, and I believe it's a non-exhaustive list, will submit feedback and suggestions to the executive committee in November, where that committee, the executive committee, will make a decision in December, which is actually probably in January, and formulate a recommendation to send to DOT. So, would anyone from UNPCH like to speak for a few minutes?
To read the resolution?
You know what, please don't read the resolution.
Okay.
Read it the last time.
But anyone want to speak about it? We've all been given it, so the copy has been circulated. And if you haven't sent a soft copy to the board office, please do.
We do.
The digital version.
Oh, yes, that has been done, sorry, okay, thank you.
Yeah, a former version was circulated in the notice of this meeting, so they're a much shorter version.
Right, so, well, this version just has informational, supplemental information how the resolution came to fruition. Basically, the upshot is that Punch is suggesting that there be a reduction of the open streets, Vanderbilt Open Streets, because of all of the detriment that has been observed on Vanderbilt Avenue, Underhill Avenue, Clausen, Franklin, Washington, Atlantic, and even out as far as Flatbush and I understand is Franklin and maybe Nostrand too. So that's a lot of people. It's not just a little bit. People on the cross streets, people are having difficulty on the 65 bus getting to where they need to go to. The 45 bus, 45 bus and of course the 69 is detrimentally impacted. So our requested proposal is to reduce it to only 2 months in the summertime when there's not that much school traffic, of course, and not every day, not 3 days a week, but 2 days a week or 1 day a week.
And not such a large footprint. Because we've also been documenting this summer, because of the situation with Mitchell's, every weekend we would walk and take videos and check it out, and it seems like there's really only 2 blocks that are actively used, and in particular the blocks from Bergen to Atlantic and the blocks from Sterling to Park, we never see really being utilized to justify that large of a disruption to the rest of the community. So we're also requesting that the footprint shrink down to reflect the usage better.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments where it says feedback or suggestions on the resolution to mention, Mr. Meehan?
Yeah, as someone who lives in Prospect Heights and really loves the open street, I would be very disappointed to see it cut back to just like 2 days a year. But I think the points about accessibility, or was it
2 a month?
2 days a month.
Oh, well, I was reading the proposal as, it says only the first and third Saturdays, and only the first, okay, so 4 days a year, because only the first and third Saturdays of May and June, or June and July, and,
So 4 days a year.
yeah, the proposal in this text says 4 days a year, and that, yes, it does.
Well, it also says that
and, excuse me, please, but I do think the accessibility concerns are valid, and I would like to see that while I would be very disappointed to see the open street reduced, given that it's already been reduced quite a bit by a couple months. I would like to see firmer consequences for those scofflaw restaurants, because I did go and check out the ones that the man who was at the previous meeting pointed out, such as I think it was Fawn, and I've been on the lookout and noticed some other problems myself with places like Nourish that very clearly are not leaving 8 feet. So I think that there is definitely points about, there is validity to the fact that there are restaurants not abiding by these regulations, and I think that we can address those without severely diminishing this program that so many in the neighborhood love. Especially I see families out there all the time, even on the streets where the restaurants aren't participating. There's kids out there with chalk and who can play or go on their scooters, and I just think that's such a wonderful program.
Thank you. Jen?
Yeah, I just want to say that actually we go out there quite often. We've surveyed all the businesses on the street, and just like the Republicans and the Democrats, it's a 50-50 split as to who it's benefiting. So that's one. Two, especially in August and September, we've observed that hardly anybody, except as mentioned, that 2-block area, where by the way, most of those restaurants are sponsors, and that's good. That's a good thing to have sponsors. I'm not saying that's bad, but there are occasions when there are people using the street, but there's the lovely Pacific Park, there's gonna be that great Lowry Triangle Park, there's Prospect Park, there's a kids park. Do you really want your kids playing in the dirty street with the e-bikes and stuff going past? I mean, as an older person, I don't go anywhere near open street because of the e-bikes and the mopeds and the motorcycles and the bicycles, and there's so much chaos on that street, not to mention the fact that there are people that live above those stores that are impacted every weekend. So we're not saying eliminate open streets. And oh, by the way, I also think it's a little early in the history of Prospect Heights right now to actually support the kind of an open street that they want to have year-round, because there's not enough variety of businesses on that street. And yes, maybe when all those big buildings are built, there will be more people actually accessing and using that street. But our observation, and we go out there quite often, and we write down how many people are sitting out there on the street, and honestly, in August and September, there aren't that many people out there. In June and July, yes. So all we're asking is to modify the schedule for now. That can always be changed in the future. And honestly, I have a feeling with the big recession coming that they're probably not gonna run it as often. That's my personal opinion.
It is a mayoral program. Anybody over here, this side of the room? Yes, ma'am.
I would also just like to add that, to Denny's point with the bikes and the motorcycles and the, policing that safety has been a hot potato that nobody wants to touch. 77 doesn't want to do it, 78 doesn't want, I didn't know about it, PHNBC, the marshals, and in the meantime, it's just speeding, and no one's policing anything.
Nobody's policing.
Because technically you're not allowed to have the mopeds you're allowed to have, e-bikes and, but not motorcycles and electric.
Yeah, certainly. Sorry, I'll
Suddenly
yield to
raise
it.
hands. Are you responding to that, or is
I
this?
was, yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, just that I think I'm seeing the same concerns with the mopeds, and I don't want to diminish that at all, but I'm disappointed by just like quick math. It looks like this would be approximately a 95-ish% reduction, maybe more because I might be forgetting Fridays in Open Street's hours, and that's part of why I would be really sad to see this proposal.
I do see some hands up. Mr. Deb, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I want to
Go ahead.
All right, I think that,
And just give it 5 minutes.
yeah,
So
okay,
let's
I
be
think that,
careful.
one of the problems we have here is that there's no equity, there's no compromise. And maybe the recommendation might be too far one way, but I would like to see if the Prospect Heights group would be willing, what can they offer? We are coming out, because I'm part of this, we're coming out and say we need something more, but it doesn't seem like anybody is willing to give anything. And it's so one-sided in this community. We talk about we like it, well, but you're not we in isolation. So you talk about the 65, you talk about the 45, you have people from other communities that are being grossly impacted by what's going on. There's safety issues there, I don't need to go through all of that. But the point that is so frustrating for me is nobody wants to give. The people who've done the grabbing and taking it to the 100th degree don't want to offer and say, okay, we hear you. Let's create a balance. And it's not just happening here, it's happening throughout the city. And it's infuriating. I'm sorry.
May I? You got somebody?
No, we're working our way around. Alex?
Yeah, thanks, Deb. Yeah, I really hear that, and in a lot of ways, it makes me, disappointed this has come up in the way that it has, because I don't think we can pretend like, bringing this before the committee as official business wouldn't be incredibly must. And I really hoped that the nature of this committee this year would be to do some more collaborative work and to get folks together to look at policy more closely, to talk about solutions. Viewers asking what's a bike boulevard. Let's look at it. Let's look at where they're good, where they're bad. What do other cities in the world do? And I still, I'm sorry to sing you up. We had raised this question last year about the Ubers, right? And I think, over email, raised this question of Uber and how many for-hire vehicles there are. And I think that's a great example of an issue that we could really do some great work on. There are way too many for-hire vehicles, right, causing traffic. And let's bring this committee together. Let's bring the members together, right? Let's do some outreach to each other. Let's do some more subcommittee work to address policy, to have constructive conversations, to make this a really equitable, great space where folks are empowered and everyone has a voice, and we understand each other. And so, for those reasons, I really kind of resent this, as I said, being taken up as official business. And I'll also add that the resolution shared tonight is extremely different from the soft copy that was sent via email. That seems a little sneaky. I don't think that's
No, we were asked to make those changes by the chair. It's not sneaky. We were in response to.
I don't think.
No, Mr.
Not you, the executive.
The committee, the public safety gave recommendations on it.
Right.
To go more, to be specific.
But we weren't sneaky. We were asked.
We should all have seen the same document.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't see it, they didn't send it to public safety.
Really?
No, we sent it to Julia.
So maybe that's an administrative error.
Each of the committees should have independently evaluated the same document.
Yeah, you know.
Nothing sneaky,
all
though.
All to say, I don't think this is productive, and I don't think it's going to get us where we need to be, and it's not how I want to work with my fellow members on stuff.
Thank you, Alex.
Yes, thank you for bringing that out, and as you heard and seen, oftentimes, voices like mine get lost in this committee.
Loud, yeah.
Speak up, please. I
Loud.
just wanted to thank him because for making me feel seen and heard, because oftentimes I feel like voices like mine get lost in this committee. I also wanted to say that we all have a right to have differences of opinion. I agree, we should respect each other. He's not here to defend himself, Scott, and for that I'm sorry, but I still have to say it. I just feel like, you know, he may not have meant it, but I feel like he comes across very angry, and it makes maybe other people in this committee that have opposing views from him feel like they can't say anything because he's gonna pounce on them. And I felt uncomfortable. So I want more than anything else to work with fellow committee members, whether they have differences of opinion than I do. Again, the operative word is compromise, and I oftentimes do not see that here.
Yeah, I mean, I would just to build on the last two comments, I would say, but I'm definitely, absolutely want to be engaged in any kind of conversation that has to do with turning these conversations into more productive, having more productive outcomes. And I think that one key part of it really is that if you're, as a community, having a discussion, there's nobody who owns the plans or the decisions. Those things have to be shared in the right timing. And then if you're, you know, and I'm speaking from somebody whose personal sentiment and beliefs is much more along the lines of the Vanderbilt Street's changes and wanting to see, I have to say that if there's somebody in this room or anywhere who thinks, this is what I want to do, I'm not going to tell anybody though because it's just going to cause all this opposition. It actually makes the opposition worse. It really does. So you have to actually learn how to share more regularly and participate more. And, you know, yes, we're all going to end up being disappointed 9 out of 10 times when it comes to advocacy, right? Maybe I'm being generous. But you have to be prepared for that in this kind of a situation. You can't expect to win 10 out of 10 times. But you do have the right to hope that you're concluded in 10 out of 10 decisions.
Good point. Peter, and then Linda?
Thank you.
And then Francis.
I gotta go to work, so I'm gonna leave after I speak, all right? But I would like to say this to my committee members, right? Anytime that you're in favor of something that others are opposing for specific reasons, challenge yourself, right? To see how what you want can work in light of what it is that they also want. Right? If you get in opposition, you're in a situation that exists, right? We speaking of Vanderbilt, right? Mm-hmm. That exists. Now you're getting opposition from your committee members in the community. Challenge yourself to say, all right, I'm at the top of the heap. This currently exists. It benefits me. But the people that I'm working with have a problem with this. How can I incorporate and make things better with their problem? Always take that perspective in anything you approach, right? I offer that to y'all because I've been in committee situations with different departments that you all would not even probably encounter, right? And that has been the methodology that I've always incorporated in my situations, right? But I got to go to work, so I have to leave.
Well, right. Before we move on, Linda and Francis, just what a great Thanksgiving moment I think this committee is having. I don't mean that's contagious, so thank you all for sharing.
So clearly, we've been doing this a while. We've all had these conversations for a long time, and there are a lot of feelings around this. So let's just put our feelings aside for a minute if we can and talk about the impacts of this program on the community, because we have a large group of volunteers. We have spent 1.5 years canvassing this neighborhood. We have submitted to the community board and to our representatives and to the DOT 42 letters from small businesses saying that the open street detrimentally hurts their bottom line. Some of these businesses, one of whom came to this committee last January, got harassed in response for speaking their truth about their business. In addition to that, we have 7 faith-based organizations that are in the process. We're writing a letter, but they've all agreed that this is impacting their congregations. There are, I think, 3 Baptists, 1 Catholic, the Jewish Shabbat, the Muslim mosque, and then there's the Haitian Baptist I'm forgetting also. But congregants cannot get to their church services and this is impacting the community in that a lot of older people find their community in their faith-based organizations. The biggest issue really has been the bus has been cut off from people who cannot get to the new stops. We had one woman who worked on Vanderbilt who had to pay $5,000 to take Ubers to her job at a laundromat. So I understand that you like the open street, and that's why we've approached it in the spirit of compromise. Like, we're not saying let's shut it down altogether. We're saying let's give people a chance to move around the neighborhood. So there is a part you did miss. It says either 1 full day, 2 times a month, or if you want to do 2 weekend days, it would start after 5 p.m. because the big issue that impacts our safety, our health, and our quality of life is that Friday night rush hour closing that backs up traffic all down Flatbush, all down Atlantic, and all down Washington. And we've all seen videos, we've posted them on our Instagram, of ambulances, fire trucks, police cars stuck in that gridlock, and that's a disaster waiting to happen. We all have families we care about. The last thing I'll bring up is that at the January meeting, James Ramel from Mitchell Soul Food came to this committee. So when you say, Alex, that you want to see things worked on in committee, we came to the committee. This isn't just like poof out of nowhere. Mitchell Soul Food told this committee that if the open street continued in the same way, they would be forced to close because they are a Sunday mainly business because they serve churchgoers, senior citizens. They said they lose money Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but they only asked for Sunday. They offered a compromise. They were turned down. So we're bringing this resolution in the spirit of like, look, I'm going to be honest, I would love to see the whole thing go away. But we recognize that there are people in the community who get enjoyment out of it. So we're trying to strike a middle ground. How can our seniors and disabled get to church, get down to, the B65, I just want to bring up, also goes to the hospital. So this is an important bus line. And that's it. That's why we brought it up.
Well, I'm on board with her. I go to Mitchell's every weekend just to talk a lot or whatever. And I have to walk 2 or 3 blocks just to get there. And it's not good for the seniors. And if I have to take some food, then I can't get it. So I'm full on board with the reduce. I didn't say cut it out, reduce. And I know everybody's not going to be happy by everything. We are not happy what they do, and they're not happy what we do. And I can understand that. But I can think we can come together with the reduce fairness for everybody. So we, myself, can get to Mitchell's on the weekend.
And I forgot to add some, Debbie, very, very quick. We had a rally to save Mitchell's. We tried to bring compromises to the DOT and to the PHNDC. We had multiple meetings about this, and nothing was done to help the restaurant. The community saved Mitchell's from closing because people were coming from Staten Island, Long Island, New Jersey. One woman told me she took a bus 2 hours to get there because they didn't want to see this 40-year-old business fail. But when you talk about this program is great, it doesn't work for everybody. And we're all part of this community. And Mitchell's has been part of the community for 40 years. Before you finished high school, right? Before you were born, young man. So they matter, and their customers matter. And they've asked for concessions, and so has lots of other people. And this was the subject of the town hall we were supposed to have with Mayor Adams that is supposedly being rescheduled. We'll see.
Ms. Nottingham, is that a hand?
Yes, it is. But I think the gentleman had his hand up before me.
Just 30 seconds. I love Open Streets. It's one of the reasons that my girlfriend was able to convince me to move to the neighborhood and we moved in together. I love that it brings a dynamic streetscape to life. But I am not personally attached to Open Streets itself. I am attached to that idea of the open streetscape. And I kind of go back to the point you was making earlier. Like there are ways that we can make compromises as a community that solve both of them, solve all arguments. You know, I can imagine we have a street of Vanderbilt that is more like Fulton Street Transit Mall, where it allows those buses, allows those emergency vehicles, but provides more pedestrian space for more restaurant space. That would be wonderful. And then the Open Street itself goes away. And that's not the thing that I'm pointing towards Open Street. It's community vibrancy.
So, the bus, it is mentioned not enough times tonight, and that's my one. I wish we could have a way to keep that B69.
Yes.
And again, all of this is up in the air because God only knows what the Brooklyn bus redesign is going to look like.
No, the B69 is staying the same.
It's
It's
whatever you've heard.
they're moving.
It has not been made official yet. I've heard rumors about a new plan. It has not been made official yet. But the same thing with Open Streets. It is up in the air. So yeah, thank you for considering. Yeah, Tracy.
Yeah. I just wanted to gently respond to Adelaide. Okay. That you were sort of concerned that this wasn't necessarily the business of this committee, but it actually, from my understanding, it is, and perhaps Linda, you can help me with that, is that the community boards are supposed to be able to give input to the Open Streets program, to DOT, or to whoever's running it, PHNDC in this specific case, but there are other entities. But there had not been any information, or there had not been any direction that the community board was given to what to vote on, and so therefore, in the absence of a proposal from the community board, guidelines upon which they should need to consider an Open Streets program, it got to the point that we needed to present one to you all. So, myself now too, but so therefore, I would gently say that it is part of our scope. It's just been ignored for a little while.
Sure. I hear you. Yeah, and I don't want to get into a really long extended discussion about it. Anyone can come to the committee meetings and raise things that they'd like to. I think my issue is more about the approach we're taking to working on policy relevant to the committee should be one, that's not so inherently divisive. I could come with a resolution next month about expanding Open Streets all over the neighborhood. I'm not going to do that, right? Because that's not going to be productive. And I think when this specific approach makes me feel as if we're not really going to make a lot of progress, and some folks might be antagonized. I think we did great work last year on specific issues. As a member, I brought up daylighting and worked it through the subcommittees and talked with folks about it, and talked about why it matters to me, and why I thought the committee should do work on that issue, and I think that went really well. I always think we can do better, but I'd like to see more. I'd like to see an approach similar to that happen for more other issues. I think there's so much policy work this committee can do, and I think we can really, really make a lot of progress and develop a much better shared understanding of policy as it relates to streets to just to make the committee and the board and the neighborhoods function a little bit better.
Really quickly, I agree. There is a lot of
Louder.
divisiveness, and I have to call it out. I think it's triggering when folks come in with items and stickers that say ban cars. It's triggering for me. And it's, of course, the First Amendment, if there's a speech, you can do whatever you want. But if we're trying to find some type of cohesion, that's not helpful.
Look, I mean, Ms. Langley got the closest of it, right?
Yeah.
If everybody's unhappy, we win, right? That's the nature of compromise.
I just feel that we're not, there are people who've been in the community for a long time, and there are new people. I think if we take the time to understand who is near to you, who is around you, and understand the impact, policy is one thing. When we get that, the human element, which is really missing, then we can start putting our policies together. But we can't put the policy first and forget the human element. And I think that's where we really need to start. So I understand what you're saying, but we need to start at the human element. Understanding, appreciating each other, knowing each other. Yes, there's some people over there that need wheelchair access. There's some people here that need to get to that store, that church over there, that's their Sabbath. That's that. Then you can start going, okay, we have to lay out the land. We understand our neighbors. We appreciate our neighbors. Now let's see what policies we can come up with. That's where it is. And that's why we have so much, some people feel put off and all of that. So let's start there, the human.
Thank you.
Make it quick. I'm going to take off my hat as co-chair for EST and put on my hat for public safety as a presentation was done to Community Board of Public Safety. Our committee, it was brought to us, and public, the open streets, environmental sanitation, especially transportation is part of public safety. So it was brought to us where that we're having a large amount of traffic that's being diverted to the side streets, and that's where their presentations with the increased traffic on the side streets where pedestrians are concerned, and where some frustrated drivers are concerned because of all the congestion and the safety matters of the pedestrians getting around with with all the increased traffic on the side streets. So the public safety, that was a concern, and they also mentioned about the bikes riding through the Vanderbilt. That's a split between 77 and 78 precinct. 77 precinct said that they're trying to enforce it, but that's a hard thing to do, and that is part of public safety. And what else? Other issues? I think they also had an issue maybe with emergency vehicles going through, and that is part of public safety. So that was brought to our table, and it was a discussion that was made. And and some of the community members gave their recommendations as they normally would.
So on that note, again, feedback is what we're looking for. So much like between now and the December 3rd meeting, if you have feedback you wish to give to be relayed to the executive committee, please submit it to the board office on this resolution, and it will be relayed.
I do have a question about some of the information in the handout. Is it possible to get a bit more detail about, the businesses that said they were negatively impacted? I would just be a little bit more curious to hear about the reasons. Similar to William, I patronize a lot of businesses during open streets, and I love it. I've always seen it to be really vibrant and dynamic, but I haven't been there, every day walking at all hours, so I could just be going when it's the busy time. But I think just the bookstores and the restaurants. I'm just curious. So I'm not negating that it's true. I would just be curious to hear a little bit more, and in the spirit of compromise, to understand like what might be the solutions to meet them halfway, because it does seem like if I'm reading the schedule adjustment correctly, it would only make it so that it's 4 days out of the year. The first and third Saturday of 2 months, that's 4 days, which seems like a very drastic reduction from the current schedule. So it would be great to understand the reasons a bit more and see if there's a more middle ground we can find that.
And in the interest of time, would you be willing to take those answers offline?
Yes.
Great, thank you. And if any, I'm sure Linda and Tracy, you guys would be willing to provide those answers.
Absolutely, certainly.
I want to thank everybody for giving 3.5 hours of their time tonight. I rarely let meetings go past an hour and a half, so yeah, this is special. Thank you all for coming. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes. And I want you to know you can and making my stuffing tonight.
Jet stuffing will be subpar. Everybody have a nice Thanksgiving.